This video is part 1 of 2, creating a technical drawing in Illustrator. Let's begin by creating an A3 horizontally formatted artboard. Now our first task is to create a border. Go to the rectangle tool, go from the top left corner, drag to the bottom right corner. Then go to path, offset path, and type in -10, and OK. And now we have offset that original box by 10 millimeters, and that's the border we require for our final presentation. Let's name all our layers, starting with the border, and try to keep separate things like dimensions and labels and the design itself. So you'll have a total of about 3 layers to deal with. We're going to be using guides and a grid to help us make our drawing and our dimensioning. First, we make visible the rulers, which are on the top and the left hand side, by going to Command R, then dragging from the top left corner a new 0 point, which is the bottom left corner of the inner border. Now we drag guides from the rulers, from the top ruler and from the left hand side ruler, and we can now drag our first guide to the 10 millimeter point, and this will be where we will place our first label, that is the front view. Next, we need to create a grid. So let us go into Preferences. We require a grid line every 10 millimeters, and let's just have 2 subdivisions. In order to see the grid, we need to knock out the fill in the background and just deal with a stroke. We can now create our title block, going to the rectangle tool and just dragging a box, making sure things intersect nicely. If you've got the fill on, just swap over to the stroke, and we have the our 10 millimeter title block. We can now use the line tool to create the subdivisions of the title block. Now hold the Shift key as you make a straight line with the Shift key held down, and look, just put these wherever, because they will change later according to the length of the information you're putting into these boxes. We now need to set up our guidelines for our first label and the beginning point for the bottom of our front view. We now need to put our front view into position, and we know the type has to be 5 millimeters in height, and the easiest way to do this is just to type in the words front view, then go to the transform tool, make your reference point the bottom left box, make the type fit between the 2 guides at 5 mil, and move it into position. I'm bringing in a drawing I've already created, but I'll show you how I've done it. I'll just roughly align things. So I began with making a circle approximately the size I wanted, and now the job was to delete the top bit and the bottom bit of the circle, and I did this by using the shape builder tool rather than Pathfinder. This is just much faster because you can work by using 2 keystrokes. Begin by selecting both shapes, then select Shape Builder, and hold the Option key and drag from the rectangle to the top of the circle, and that will delete those two portions from the main section. There we have it. Repeat this for the bottom part. The next section is created by making a rectangle, making sure it's aligned with the circle on top, and then modifying the anchors at the bottom using the direct selection tool. Now that the front view is done, we need to save a copy of that front view because we will need a backup. We need to first create a new artboard. We need to first create a copy of our design, and using the same method as the way we deleted parts of the circle, this time we're going to select all three shapes, and using the shape builder tool, we're going to hold the shift key and drag through each shape and thereby unite them. Our next job is just to zoom in and tidy up any stray anchors. Use the delete anchor point tool to do this job. Let's return back to our presentation artboard and continue with the drawing. So we need to create guidelines intersecting with each major part of the front view horizontally and vertically. To work at the distance between the front view and the top view, let's reassign the beginning of the grid and the ruler to the top left corner of the front view. But we need also just to refresh that grid by going off then back on again. Just hit the keys, command quotation mark, drag a guide down to your 40mm distance from the top view, and now we can draw the top view from that new guide. The depth of this candlestick is 14mm, and I'm using the transform tool to do this correctly by unchecking the constraints of width to height and just typing in the figure. We should have created a center line at the very beginning, but anyway, we'll do that now. Drag in a center line, line it up with the front of the object, and we're going to use this to put internal details such as the actual candle hole. Again, use the transform tool to help you adjust the size. Make sure you've changed the reference point to a suitable position. The top middle would be right in this case, and just make the appropriate adjustments. The line for this particular hidden detail, because we can't see it, is a broken line. So 5 points for the dash should be sufficient, and make sure you click on the second setting of the corners being aligned with the dash. We need now to fix the weight of the lines. The broken line is 1 point. The actual object itself that is visible is 2 points. And these are the two weights we'll be using throughout the drawing. We can create guides now with the new information and just drag a couple of guides from the left-hand side ruler and just transfer that information to the top view, in which we'll be placing the hole seen from above. Now, using the line segment tool, we can add the hidden information from as seen from above. So let's just create some lines first, and then using the eyedropper, we can then copy that particular style of line. We are now going to create a 45-degree line, holding the shift key from the corner of the top right front view, then right-click and select Make Guides. We can now transfer key information from the top view across to the 45-degree line. We can now take vertical guides where the horizontal guides intersect with the 45-degree guide. If for some reason your guides don't quite line up or don't intersect correctly, you can unlock the guide or release the guide by going Option Command colon and just move the guide into position, then lock it again, Option Command colon. We are now ready to transfer all the information to the right hand side view. Now for the cross section and its hatch lines. So let's bring over our drawing that we made on the second artboard earlier. Just copy and paste it. Now select the rectangular grid tool, which is under the line segment tool. What we need to do is just select the grid tool, click on the artboard, and this dialog box will open up. 160 by 160 seems to be fine. Create 40 lines horizontally and 0 lines vertically. That should give you this nice grid. And then it needs to be rotated at 45 degrees. Hover on the corner, hold the Shift key, and make sure it overlaps the shape. Then go to Object and Arrange and send this back. So the actual shape of the candlestick is above the grid. Select both, right click, and select Clipping Mask. Paste another copy of the contour of the candlestick, then align it with the clipping mask, and you have a cross-sectional view. It becomes complete once you've taken a copy of the hollow and placed it into position, made the appropriate modifications, give it a fill, knock out the dash, and you've got yourself a cross-sectional view of that hole. Now just correct all the line weights and then complete all the labeling for each of the views.